Welcome to our Friday night question and answer program. Please go ahead with your call.
Hi, Chris. Revelation 10:11. Thou must prophesy again. And since we don't know the duration of Judgment Day, because we didn't have the final time in judgment information, were we supposed to continue to prophesy again about May 21, 2011, in this day of judgment that we are now in?
Well, you're asking a good question, a very practical question for our day, for the time we're living in. And what are God's directive for our time? What are we to do? Are we to continue to prophesy? And here's what we know. We know that God had a program to save a great multitude that he accomplished during the Great Tribulation. And in John chapter 21, the Lord, through instructing the disciples concerning where to fish and then their great catch of fish, and then bringing it to land apart from the ship, but rather swimming or coming on a little ship and bringing a great catch of fish 200 cubits about from land. That's a picture of the great multitude coming in the last about 17 years of the Great Tribulation, which just so happens to work out to a little bit over 200 months. It actually matches exactly the language of about 200 cubits in John 21. And so the great catch of fish pictures all the elect, and they are brought to Christ, and God now has completed his salvation program. He has saved the last one of the elect. But in John 21, we are given directives concerning the time after the great catch of fish come in, or after the great multitude has been brought in. And we know the great multitude comes in out of great tribulation. And therefore, it's a directive concerning the time after the great tribulation. And the Bible does tell us in Mark 13, verse 24, in those days after that tribulation. And there it's said to be a period of days. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, we're given a little bit more information in the first couple of verses. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them, while the sun or the light of the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. We have to read this very closely and carefully, and when we do, we find that God is speaking of a period of time that he calls the days of youth. And during the evil days have not yet come, the sun has not yet been darkened, or the light or the moon or the stars have not yet been darkened. And during the days of youth, the clouds have not returned after the rain, which means that during the days of youth, the sun is shining, the light of the moon, light itself is available. They're not identified as evil days as much, and there is rain. That's what occurs in the days of youth. And the implication is that when the days of youth expire, that the evil days come. And the evil days are when the sun is dark and the moon and the light is darkened. And the clouds return after the rain. And again, we know immediately after the tribulation is just like saying immediately after the latter rain. The sun is darkened. So the language fits very well with our understanding of what took place beginning on May 21, 2011, when the Great Tribulation concluded. God put out the light of the gospel. Now, what's also interesting is in John 21, after the great catch of fish, the Lord gives the directive 3 times to Peter, feed my sheep. And it's also said to be the 3rd time that Jesus is showing himself. So it's very definitely the purpose of God as the number 3 spiritually represents God's purpose. This is the Lord's purpose for his people after the Great Tribulation, after all the elect have been brought in. Now feed the sheep. And that's accomplished through the sharing of the Word of God. There's no other way to do it. And one other interesting tie-in with Ecclesiastes is after Jesus in John 21 says to Peter 3 times, "Lovest thou me?" Then 3 times Peter responds, "Lord, yea, thou knowest I love thee." Then Jesus responds 3 times, "Feed my sheep," a series of 3 threes. After "feed my sheep" in verse 18, it says, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, when thou wast young." Well, what did it say in Ecclesiastes 12? Again, it mentioned the days of youth. And in the days of youth is when you were young. "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth." And the days of youth are when the evil days have not come, the sun is not darkened, and so on. And so, isn't it interesting that Jesus brings that up in John 21, verse 18, at this particular point, when in Ecclesiastes 12, 1 and 2, the days of youth are the time before the darkened sun. Let's keep reading. "I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself, and walkest whither thou wouldest. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not." And it doesn't seem to make any sense why the Lord is making reference to when you were young and when you'll be old, until we factor in Ecclesiastes 12, 1 and 2. And now the days of youth spiritually are over, and it's the time of darkness, and this is like old age for the believers. This is a time when we are old, and we have no pleasure in these days. That is, there's no salvation. God takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked, nor do the children of God take any pleasure in the fact that God has ended his salvation program and is in effect destroying man day by day as we continue on. And so all that comes into view. But the directive, the highlight, the main command of God for this period of time is feed the sheep. And in order to feed sheep, what do we have to do? We have to prophesy. There's no way around that. I know some people talk about just feeding the elect, and you have to prophesy to everybody because you can't pinpoint who the sheep are, who the elect are. You have to share information with everyone. And so that requires prophesying or sharing the Word of God, sharing the truths of the Bible. And that's what we're doing right now in a group like this. That's why we still have our Bible studies during the week. It's why we still have Facebook groups. And, you know, things have slowed down on Facebook because we're not doing the advertising we were doing. And yet, since October 7th, we have had several thousand people continue to join EBible's Facebook groups. There's the Bible Answers Muslims group has gained over 3,000 people alone since that time. And there's another Spanish group that also has gained many hundreds of people since that time. And every day, again, at a slower pace, people are joining this group and that group that are EBible Facebook groups. So God is still bringing people to us, in other words, and we're still interested in reaching them. We're continuing to have some material translated into Indonesian and into Spanish, and we're going to slowly work as much as we can do in other languages and continue to share information from the Bible. So yes, we are to continue prophesying, and that could involve sharing tracts. If someone has a tract that's accurate, then yes, hand out a tract. It's all part of sharing truth of the Bible and feeding sheep.